Well, Coach, you had the regatta over the weekend, Humboldt Bay. Just kind of tell me just how it all went.
It's always good to be home. This is the third week of consecutive competition for us, and we just felt really good to be able to be at home for this competition, sleep in your own beds, get a little bit more rest, and once a year we have the opportunity for hometown crowds to come out and check it out. And we got really lucky because Friday's weather was not very nice, and Saturday went off without a hitch. I think maybe we were 5 minutes behind schedule when it was all said and done.
So looking at the notes, ranked fourth. Now is that for West, or is I'm guessing for West region, or?
No, that the CRCA coaches poll is a nationwide poll that comes out. I think it comes out once a week. That was the very first coaches poll.
Okay.
We were in front of UCSD at the Sacramento Invitational, and then they were in front of us at Berg Cup. So we expect that this week that will change. There's been some pretty big changes across the U.S. So two-time defending national champions Barry University were beaten by FIT, and so we have a feeling that they'll move into that number one spot. Western Washington We'll face off with everybody in the West region this weekend at San Diego Crew Classic. And so what we know is that when the NC2A poll comes out on Wednesday of next week, that it'll be the regional rankings, and then CRCA will probably reflect that.
After opening the season, San Diego, Southern California, Humboldt Bay, after these regattas, what do you see from your team? Is it where you want your squad to be? I mean, obviously there's always room for improvement, but what do you see? What have you seen from your squad?
We went into Sacramento. We trained through that, so we weren't necessarily fresh. I should probably say the fatigue factor was pretty big, and we raced San Diego. We were 1 second in front of them, and then we see them a week later, and we've been training all week in Southern California. So I'm hoping that the big change in relative speed from 1 week to the next. So we went from being 1 second in front to being 9 seconds behind. 10 seconds is a pretty big swing. And we've been a little bit more conscious about going into Crew Classic, trying not to be in such a fatigued state. But, the season is quite long, and if you're not training aggressively, then you're not going to progress. We have a really hard time understanding our own relative speed because we're on a body of water that shifts about anywhere between 7 and 9 feet a day. And when we go to Crew Classic, this is a body of water that'll be moving also. But we'll understand where we are. Western Washington scrimmage last weekend with a common school that we raced against, but they were not willing to give us any information on how that scrimmage went. So I guess we'll find out this weekend how that goes. And we're hoping that it's not a big distance, because if you're starting the season at 10 seconds, that's a very large gap to try to fill in a 6-week period of time.
You talk about Western and at the Crew Cup this week. Aside from Western, any other schools that you're kind of excited to kind of be in the water with?
Crew Classic is considered to be like the kickoff to racing season, and this is just it's kind of challenging because racing season is so short for most programs that we'll get to see everybody in the West region. So Seattle Pacific and Western Washington have raced at the same regatta, but they didn't race each other, which is very unusual. That if you're going to go to a regatta, you generally race your common opponents in Division II. So we'll see Division II-3 Club at Crew Classic this weekend, and this gives us obviously a really good idea of where we are. There are the Cow Cup. Even though we're not racing directly in the Cow Cup, it is the event, I think, just either before or after our race that has common opponents on the East Coast, and that will also give us an idea, maybe where we are in the grand scale of things against other crews in the nation. So it's an exciting opportunity, and we're still waiting for the schedule to come out, so we know that all of the The rankings were due yesterday afternoon, so we're hoping to find out, where we landed. The last thing you want in San Diego is to be out in lane 8, which is a body of water within itself when you compare it to lane 1. So should be good times.
Great. Anything else you like that?
No.
Well, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.